Welcome, everyone. I appreciate you making space to be here. For those of you that may be watching after the fact, I hope that you can take this next 30 minutes to rest and recharge for our emotional wellness, rest, recharge, and stress reduction workshop. My name is Dr. Tasha Williams. I'll be guiding us through the process today and sharing some information with you, and then guiding through a mindful meditation a little later on. So before we get started, just let me share a little bit about who we are. We are a mid-sized nonprofit community mental health organization, Mid-Ohio Psychological Services. We provide mental health therapy and services, as well as drug and alcohol services to the greater community in Central Ohio. We have 4 different locations, one in Delaware, one in Columbus, one in Lancaster, as well as one in Newark. But we also serve individuals all across Ohio via telehealth. So as we focus on our own well-being today, I also want to share that this workshop is part of our larger mission to give back. Through our Be Kind to Your Mind fundraiser, we're supporting mental health services for those who need it most. And your participation today is already a step toward that mission, and we're deeply grateful for that. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this or to participate in this. So let's take time for all of us that are here in this moment to just pause, breathe, and be present for ourselves as well as for each other. And thank you for being here. I look forward to sharing this space of calm and connection with you. So just briefly, here is our agenda for our time together. We'll start with talking a little bit about our purpose for this, as well as a moment of self-reflection, and then dive into a little bit about understanding emotional wellness and stress. And then we'll go into about a 15-minute guided mindfulness meditation practice, and then wrap up with a brief self-reflection and a take-home tip. So when we're thinking about the purpose of why we are choosing to do this, I'm so glad that you could join us here today as we come together really to honor Mental Health Awareness Month. It's a time dedicated to shining a light on the importance of emotional well-being and supporting those with, that are on their mental health journey or mental wellness journey. And at Mid-Ohio Psychological Services, we believe that taking care of our minds is just as important as taking care of our bodies. And that's what today is really all about. So in this brief workshop, we're going to explore simple but powerful tools to boost your emotional wellness and practice techniques that you can use anywhere, anytime, for as long or as short as you want to really help you feel grounded and centered and recharged. So through a mindfulness meditation that we'll be doing later on today, we'll work together to recharge our batteries and hopefully cultivate a sense of peace and resilience as you leave our workshop today. So as we get started, I want to start with a brief self-reflection activity. So this is really just for you to think about. I don't expect you to put any comments in the chat or to respond. Really just for you to think about. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 means that you feel completely overwhelmed and stressed, and 10 means you feel fully at peace and emotionally well, where would you place yourself right now? Just take a minute to really anchor down a number for you. Once you have that number in mind, I want you to reflect on what made you choose that number and not a lower one. I also want you to consider, what would it take for you to move 1 point higher on that scale? What do you think you would need to just boost yourself ever so slightly 1 point forward? Okay, I want you to hold on to that today and kind of keep that as an intention for you as we're talking about emotional wellness and doing our mindful meditation practice. So when we're thinking about wellness, it's really important to recognize that wellness means different things to everyone. And there is no one right definition for emotional wellness or just wellness in general. In so many ways, our definition of wellness is really based on our sense of identity and our values, what we believe in. And it also incorporates our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in all of the areas that are listed there. So environmentally, contributing to engaging spaces, engaging with spaces that are safe and accessible for us, the financial aspects of things, intellectual aspects, occupational, if you're working and pursuing a particular career path, physical health. Of course, that's what we often think about when we think about wellness. That's probably the most classic. But socially, it's also an important domain as well. How are we able to build engaging and trustful, respectful relationships with other people and really lean into our social support network, as well as our spiritual selves. That contributes to our wellness. And then last but not least, that emotional piece that really we're going to focus on today. It's, how are we able to be kind to ourselves and be able to weather life's storms and welcome a wide range of emotional experiences and not necessarily shove away our emotions when things get difficult. So in our time together today and in our activity, we're really going to be focusing more on the emotional component of wellness and emotional well-being. When we think about emotional wellness, it is important to recognize that there's three primary pieces to emotional wellness. And kind of more holistically, it's the ability to understand, process, and manage our own emotions effectively in the face of challenges. So even when things get difficult, we're not necessarily shoving away emotions that come up for us. We're allowing ourselves to experience that, but we're also not allowing ourselves to be all consumed by that. And so some of those key components that are helpful to just touch on is self-awareness, emotion regulation, and resilience. Those are the three things that primarily comprise emotional wellness. And so when we think about self-awareness, that really is more about recognizing and understanding our own emotions versus emotional regulation is about managing our emotional responses to stressful or triggering events in our lives. And then resilience is our ability to bounce back from different setbacks or cope with any adversity that we face. And we all face adversity, some in, more than others, that's for sure. But we all experience some hardship in life, and there's certainly ups and downs in life's journey. And so it's really important to be able to find a way to bounce back or have that sense of resilience throughout life in order to have a strong sense of emotional wellness. Research also shows that individuals with high emotional wellness are better equipped to handle life stressors and maintain mental and physical health. That's pretty tried and true. It's been studied for decades at this point. And so I think it's really just helpful to stay grounded in recognizing that self-awareness, emotion regulation, and resilience are the keys to having strong emotional wellness. So when we think about unmanaged stress and what happens when we maybe struggle a little bit with some of those things that we talked about, there's usually a slew of emotional and physical consequences that can happen. So I want to just notice somebody else joined us. I want to make sure that I'm able to admit them. Perfect. Give me 1 second here. So when we're talking about unmanaged stress and the emotional consequences, there are things like anxiety or irritability, mood swings, feeling incredibly overwhelmed. I know that for me is a pretty telltale sign that I'm not managing my stress well. I tend to get really overwhelmed, sensory wise, and my body feels like shutting down, or I feel like isolating or shutting other people out. It can also make concentrating and decision making really, really difficult when we have unmanaged stress. I know that I experience that quite a bit as well. Again, with like decision fatigue is an example of that maybe feeling as though there's too many decisions to make, or that you've made so many decisions recently that it just feels totally overwhelming to make one more decision, even if it's like, what are we going to eat for dinner tonight? That I know for me sometimes feels very overwhelming when I'm very stressed. But of course, there's physical consequences of unmanaged stress as well. And so things like heart disease or experiencing like high blood pressure, having difficulties with your immune system or your digestive system are all really, really common whenever there's unchecked stress in our lives, as well as sleep pattern disruption. So difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, waking up multiple times throughout the night and then having a really hard time falling back asleep, but also difficulty staying asleep in the morning, maybe waking up too early before your alarm than you want. That is pretty common for unchecked or unmanaged stress, as well as maybe reduced energy levels, feeling really lethargic or kind of run down, just kind of listless, and also increased vulnerability to illness, which then links back with what we were just talking about with the weakened immune system. So it's important to recognize both the emotional and physical consequences that can happen throughout our lives with unmanaged stress. The American Institute of Stress reports that 77% of people experience stress that affects their physical health, and 73 experience stress that impacts their mental health. So it's quite a large proportion of individuals in society that are going to be dealing with unmanaged stress at some point or another that is impacting them in either an emotional or a physical way. And certainly chronic stress over time has even more long-lasting impacts. So chronic stress really activates what's known as the HPA axis in our body, our hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and just fancy words. You don't necessarily need to know that. But really what's most important is knowing that that's our body's alarm system. And chronic stress really leads to prolonged hormone release, which then can harm our bodily systems over time. And the whole system is really helpful if you're in danger. So it works really well when it needs to, like, if a car suddenly swerves in front of you, as an example. But when it's turned on too often, like with constant stress in your life, it can really wear your body down over time and affect your organs, affect your sleep, mood, or even your health further, as we talked about. So the good news is that research indicates multiple pathways for managing your stress. And while we're not going to dive into every single one of these, I do want to at least talk through some of them before we land on our mindful meditation experience today. And so one of the first categories is social support, things like spending time with friends and family, sharing experiences with others who understand you, helping others to shift focus away from your own personal stress, and protecting your time and energy from draining situations by setting boundaries with other people. Really leaning on others for support and connection and perspective can be incredibly helpful for managing stress. And then also physical activity and movement. We really, need to talk about that a little bit as well. And I'm not here, as an exercise physiologist or anything like that, but research really is strong in, any kind of movement or physical activity, not necessarily even strong exercise, but just movement of sorts helps reduce our cortisol levels, our hormone levels. That's the stress hormone in our body, and boost our endorphins, or those feel good hormones that we have. So things like walking, running, yoga, or really any form of movement at all is important. Things like stretching, relieving muscle tension through stretching really helps promote blood flow. Things like dancing, we don't think about that a lot, right? But it's a really fun way to release buildup of energy. And then other kinds of outdoor activities, things like hiking, biking, or simply just spending time in nature, perusing a path, in the forest, or something that floats your boat more along the outdoor activity realm. But any kind of movement you can get within your day is helpful and beneficial for managing your stress. Of course, emotional expression, there's a lot of different ways that we can release our emotions or get them out of our body. It really allows us to process and release them instead of bottling them up. So things like writing about your thoughts and feelings, and, using art or music or poetry to express our emotions, sharing with a trusted friend or a counselor if you're in therapy, allowing yourself also to maybe release emotion through crying or laughing without judgment. Our body's ability to cry is incredibly important and relieving for our emotions. And so for folks that really try to shove that down and they prevent themselves from crying, they're really doing themselves a disservice because there's so many hormones even that are released through our tears when we choose to cry. It's actually a really, really important part of being human that we want to make sure that we're tapping into when it's appropriate. And laughing certainly releases feel-good hormones as well and allows us to process our stress in a better way. And then lastly, on this particular slide is thoughts. Sometimes you'll hear them talked about as cognitive behavioral strategies or cognitive strategies. Really, it's any focus that we can have on changing the way that we think can reduce our stress. And so being able to do what's called cognitive restructuring is just a fancy word for challenging our negative thoughts that we experience and replacing them with more realistic ones. It doesn't even mean necessarily replacing them with positive ones, but sometimes they're neutral, just more realistic thoughts that are less like self-condemning. Being able to, list things that you're grateful for each day and having some sort of gratitude practice can be really important. And research has really shown that that's effective at managing stress. Also, being able to break big problems down into smaller, more manageable steps and more of a problem-solving capacity. When we're able to solve small problems, sometimes there's the snowball effect that allows us to feel a little less cluttered emotionally and allows us to focus on bigger problems that we have then. And then also positive self-talk. So being able to shift away from self-criticism towards self-compassion and just really having the same loving kindness that you would have for a friend or a loved one. I always encourage folks to think to themselves, what would you say to a friend, or what would you say to a loved family member that's going through what you're going through right now? And then whatever those words are, can you apply that to yourself, or why do you feel like you're the exception? Can you share that with yourself too? So just one quick way of being able to shift self-criticism into self-compassion. There's a few more ways that research showed that's some pathways for managing stress. And this certainly is not an all-encompassing list. There are probably many things that I did not list on the slides for our sake of time today in our brief workshop. But there's the spiritual and reflective practice aspect as well. So being able to find peace and grounding through personal beliefs or reflection. Prayer, spiritual reflection for those who find comfort in faith can be really helpful, or perhaps spending mindful time outdoors. Mindful walking or gardening outside, reflecting while engaging with nature, or it allows you to have some kind of connection with Mother Nature and something that, inevitably we end up feeling a sense of awe about, or feeling a sense of a greater purpose or something bigger than ourselves. That can be really helpful with managing our stress too. Also, practical lifestyle management. So being able to reduce our daily stress through structured habits, things like prioritizing tasks that we need to get to, and set realistic goals for ourselves and time management kind of way, or being able to focus on healthy eating and sleep for ourselves, being able to get that proper nutrition and having really healthy sleep hygiene supports our stress management. And so making sure we're getting to bed at an adequate time, maybe giving ourselves an hour of wind down time appropriately that's screen free before bedtime. Doing, they always say like doing 3 things in order, in the same order every single night right before bed can train your brain to start releasing the chemicals and the hormones that support adequate sleep. So those are just some very quick tips along the way as well. But other things like decluttering and creating order in your physical space, whether it's your workspace or your home space. A lot of times if you live or you have a very cluttered environment that you're spending a good deal of time in, that actually weigh really, really heavy on you, create a sense of anxiety and stress over time. So decluttering can really help relieve that and help us feel like we're regaining a sense of control over our lives. Also limiting screen time. I had already kind of mentioned that as well, but certainly reducing digital overload and media stress is a way to be able to manage our stress overall. And then last but not least, mindfulness and meditation practices. So being able to reduce our daily stress through being able to, think about how we can help calm our mind, reduce anxiety, increase self-awareness. There are some specific core aspects to mindfulness that I want to talk through. So being present in the moment, really focusing on the here and now and paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and sensations in your body as they arise. That's one of the really important aspects of mindfulness. Another is non-judgment. So being able to observe your experiences without attaching any labels or judgments, allowing you to see things really as they are, is another really important aspect of mindfulness. And then another, it's not the final aspect, but the last one we'll talk about is really acceptance. So being able to acknowledge what your experiences are, including unpleasant ones, without resistance or judgment, is really part of the key to mindfulness as well. So some of those things can be practiced through things like mindful breathing, focusing on each breath, inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly, which we'll get to here when we're doing our guided practice here in a moment. Things like guided meditation, using audio or apps to guide you through relaxation, or even just listening to music without words in a non-guided way if you feel like you can kind of guide yourself into a space of being more mindful or meditating. There's a few other things as well, like being able to do a body scan. So, closing your eyes and really thinking about scanning from the tip of your head to the tips of your toes, and or vice versa, back and forth, and feeling, where at in your body you notice any kind of sensation or any kind of tension, maybe, as an example. And then working to release that particular part of your body. that kind of loops us into progressive muscle relaxation, which is really intentionally tensing and releasing certain muscle groups to release stress. I know that that tends to be my tried and true favorite, at least one that I found to be the most helpful for myself, because I carry a lot of tension and stress in my neck and in my shoulders. They're rock hard. If you would feel them right now, they're rock hard. And so I know for myself, like when I can intentionally give myself a moment of space to tighten and notice what that feels like, and then release and notice what that feels like and how it feels different. That's just one very small and very quick way, an internal coping skill that I find a lot of value in. And I take with me anywhere I go. So we are going to be walking through a mindfulness and meditation process here in just a moment. So let's shift gears. And if you don't already have your video turned off, now might be a good time for you to do that, just so there's no distractions for you in this process. There will be some softer music playing in the background, but I am also going to turn off my video so that I'm not acting as a distraction for you. I'll still share my screen, but it's going to be a different slide as we go into this. So feel free to turn off your cameras if you want. I'll do the same, and I'm going to share my screen differently. Okay, in one moment to get set up. All right. Okay, welcome to this relaxation practice. This is a guided visualization meditation adapted from the work of Roberta Shapiro. The purpose of this session is to help you relax, let go of stress and tension, and create a sense of peace and serenity. As we begin, I just want you to find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down. Take a moment to find your comfort. Allow your hands to rest gently wherever they feel most comfortable. And close your eyes if that feels right for you. Let's start by focusing on your breath. Just notice your breathing. Take a deep breath in and slowly breathe out. Inhaling deeply through your nose, allowing your lungs to expand fully. And exhale gently through your mouth. With each breath, imagine you're inhaling calmness and exhaling any tension. As you continue breathing, allow your body to relax just a little more with each breath. Feeling your chest rise and fall. Your shoulders release, and your mind begins to settle. Continue breathing. Inhaling calmness and exhaling tension. Your mind begins to settle. Now imagine that you're lying on a raft, gently rocking back and forth in blue water in the soothing warmth of the sun. As you drift, you become more aware of sensations in your body. Perhaps there's tension in your shoulders or stiffness in your lower back. Perhaps your chest feels heavy or your legs feel restless, just take a moment to tune into your body and stay curious about what it's trying to tell you. Floating, rocking, back and forth. You catch a glimpse of the sun and you first feel the warmth of the sun on your feet. Your toes soften all the way into the bottom of your foot. The heel, the instep, the arch. Your feet go limp and soft from the penetrating warmth of the sun. Just notice that warmth for a moment longer. You feel that warmth move deep into your feet like the deepest massage and all around your feet. As you breathe in, feel that warmth travel up your ankles and calves, deep into your calves, releasing any tension. Allowing your muscles to completely let go, completely rest. Always bringing your mind back to this warmth and peacefulness, sending thoughts away, sending all thought away. The warmth moves into your hips now, soothing your hips and thighs with deep, luxurious warmth. All tension draining from your legs, all the way up now from the very tips of your toes to the tops of your legs. Your legs grow heavier and heavier, sinking deeper into relaxation. Continue to breathe and just feel the warmth, letting your muscles release. Now, imagine the warmth flowing into your stomach, calming and soothing as your stomach muscles absorb the delicious rays of the sun. It travels up into your chest. You feel the glow in your heart as your breathing slows, flowing into your neck and shoulders, and down through your arms to each fingertip. Stay there for a moment, noticing the sun's warmth in your hands and fingers, your shoulders and chest. Any remaining tension just melts away, dissolving like gentle waves on the shore. Feel the warmth move up from your neck into your cheeks and your jaw, and up to the top of your head, soothing your scalp and your forehead, your eyebrows. Noticing if there's any tension, and allowing the gentle heat to soothe and relax your muscles. Gentle heat soothing and relaxing. All the way up. All the way up as those muscles go limp. The warmth surrounding you and protecting you. Sending away all thought on waves of relaxation. Sending all thought away. Just notice the warmth of the sun glistening over your entire body, penetrating all your muscles, letting go of the tension, letting go of the stress. Only focusing on this moment. Floating and rocking back and forth. Now just rest in this state of peace. Notice your body and how it feels different. Notice what it's trying to tell you. More relaxed, more at peace. Imagine you are floating on that raft, perfectly at ease, perfectly warm and safe, perfectly one with the sun and the warmth. Just rest here. In this space, there is no thought, only drifting and floating, drifting and floating. Take a moment here. Breathe deeply in. As you do, allow the warmth and calmness to fill you completely. Breathing in the light, breathing in the warmth. When you are ready, begin to bring your awareness back to small movement in your body. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Take a deep breath in and out. Deep breath in. And as you breathe out, gently open your eyes to the here and now. And welcome back to the present moment, carrying this sense of peace and relaxation with you throughout the rest of your day. Welcome back to the present moment, and we'll take just a moment to wrap up our time together. Give me 1 second to reshare my screen. I hope you were able to follow along with me in that mindfulness moment. And while we took a good deal of time to do that for ourselves today, you can always take smaller pieces of that with you as you go. You don't have to take a full 15 minutes or anything grand like that necessarily. Even just one moment to do a shrapnel of that can be really helpful. So as we wrap up, I want you to, again, kind of reflect on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 means you feel completely overwhelmed and stressed, and 10 means you feel fully at peace and emotionally well. Where would you place yourself right now? Again, you don't need to worry about sharing that in the chat or coming off mute. It's really for yourself. And as follow-up reflection, there's a couple questions there that I think are really helpful to think about for yourself. So what small changes did you notice that influenced your number that you chose? And maybe what parts of today's practice felt most helpful for you in moving up the scale if your number did change or go up a little bit? Take a moment to think about that. Another thing for you to take away from our time together today is that you really can take mindfulness anywhere with you, and also meditation too. Again, it doesn't have to be a long period of time, but being able to practice mindful moments during routine activities that you're already doing is a really great way of starting to dip your toe into that mindfulness-based practice, and really allow yourself to get more into the present here and now. So maybe choose one activity daily, like washing your hands or drinking your morning coffee, brushing your teeth, anything like that. And really just fully focus in that moment on the sensations that you experience. Maybe paying attention to the temperature of the water or the smell of the soap, the taste or the warmth of the coffee, the feel of the bristles on your toothbrush. Just really bringing your awareness to those small moments can build mindfulness naturally into your daily routine, in your daily life. And the more you practice, the better your brain gets at doing that more routinely and more naturally. Same thing with meditation practices. Even starting 5 minutes a day and integrating it into something that is already an existing habit, like, taking, if you brew coffee in the morning, maybe taking that time of when you press brew until it's done to just sit there and allow yourself to sit quietly and experience the here and now, focus on your breath as an example. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate that. As we wrap up, I want to thank each of you for joining us, whether you were here live or you're viewing this after our live showing. Our work in supporting mental health wouldn't be possible without the generosity and spirit of people like you. And if you found today's session helpful, I encourage you to extend that kindness to others by supporting our Be Kind to Your Mind fundraiser. Your contributions help provide critical services to those in need and expand access to wellness programs just like this one. Together, we can continue making a meaningful impact on our community.